Welcome back, fellow sim racers. Thanks again for joining in for another video. Before we get going today, I wanted to take 2 seconds to say that I hope that everybody had a great Christmas and that they all got all the sim racing gear that they were hoping Santa would bring them, whoever you celebrate. If you got gifts, I hope it was what you were looking for, and I hope everybody had a good a chance to spend time with their family and stuff, because that's what you really need to do during the holidays. I know that I did, so I hope that you guys did as well. So what today's video is about is adjusting your seat position in iRacing. So a couple videos back, I touched on 5 really good tips if you're new at sim racing, and I can put a link to that down in the description. If you haven't seen that video, you can go back and check it out. But if you have, you'll know that one of the more important tips that I said in the video was to make sure that your field of view is correct when you're new to sim racing, or not when you're new, but anytime, that your field of view is correct, because it's very important that things outside the car are the correct proportion or the correct size to what they're supposed to be. And iRacing especially, but most sims have a built-in field of view calculator that will make sure that things outside the car are in fact the correct size. So a negative to that is a lot of times when you set your field of view correctly, what it does is it takes you in very close to the dashboard. And I know a lot of people, especially if you're on like a single monitor setup, a lot of people don't like that. They don't like being so close to the dash, so they end up backing their field of view back to get away from the dash, but you're negatively affecting the way that your brain perceives the game, and you will run slower lap times by doing that. So what can you do? What you can do is you can leave the field of view what it's supposed to be, and you can actually change the seat position. And I don't think a lot of people realize that you can do that, because it's not very straightforward of how you get to it, but I'm going to show you kind of quickly how you do. Let's just say we go into the options menu, we go into the graphics setting, and we punch in our information for the monitor width, the monitor bezels, and all that stuff in your viewing distance. Let's just say iRacing gives you a calculated field of view of 75. So you calculate that, click done. Next time you go into test, it gives you this field of view right here. That's what my field of view would be with my monitor width at a 75. So you get in the car, and for me, it actually seems pretty decent. But if it wasn't, if you weren't happy with it, what can you do about this without changing the field of view? Well, what you can do is escape back to this menu here. And when you're in the replay, you're going to pause the replay, and you're going to go to cockpit. You're going to go to these camera menus right here, and you're going to make sure you're actually in cockpit. Sometimes it will not be. Sometimes it'll be on a trackside camera, but just make sure you're in cockpit, and it should look identical at the moment to what your calculated field of view was. Now, if you hit Control F12, it brings up this camera edit command. And you may or may not have seen this before. This is obviously the camera edit control box for replays, and most people see this and never mess with it unless they really get interested in replays. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you adjust these fields in the cockpit camera, when you save this and you leave this menu, the cockpit will look exactly like it did in the replay. So long story short, if you pull up this Control F12 command in the replay and you adjust these settings to where you like it in the replay, then next time you go into the race, that's where your seat will be. So the 3 that you really need to pay attention to, try not to mess with any of this down here, but the 3 that you really need to mess with are offset X, offset Y, and offset Z. Offset Z is going to raise you up in the seat and lower you in the seat. Okay, so whatever you feel comfortable with that's what you need to set. The offset X is the one that's really going to help out your situation. You can actually back it way out, okay? But what I want you to notice when I do this, and put it back close to 0, because that's typically where it's set. See how close I am to the dash? Now, only pay attention to what's outside the car. Okay, if you change your field of view, the size of that stuff changes. But when you just change this offset X, notice that outside stays exactly the same. So your field of view is still going to be correct. all those items outside, the braking points, the signs, everything you see out there are still going to be correct. All you're doing here is you're physically changing the seat position. So if you want to see a little more out the window or a little less out the side window, you change these characters, okay? So you get it where you want it, and then you're going to come down here, you're going to click Save Car. It will automatically create a name. If it doesn't have one yet, you just click Save, click Yes if it asks you to override it, and then when you hit Escape and go into Test, the camera is right where you left it. It will not move back. And it will stay this way every time you go into a race until you physically pull that Control F12 command up again in a replay and change it. So I just wanted to show you guys this because I know a lot of people don't even realize you can do this. First, get your field of view correct. Get it set what iRacing recommends, and then come into the replay cameras and go ahead and adjust your seating position to get it like you want it, because you can have the correct field of view and have your seat where you want it. And I think a lot of people are confused about that. So hopefully this helps somebody out. Try it out for yourself, get it exactly where you want it, and save it, and hopefully it'll help you get some better lap times and keep your field of view what it's supposed to be. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please leave a like. I do appreciate it. And subscribe and stay tuned for some more good information coming up. And I appreciate it as always. We'll see you guys in the next video.